Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Red Eye and today we are going to be going through the artwork of Berserk. I am a huge Berserk fan, to put it mildly. Berserk is probably one of, if not my favorite pieces of media of all time. I'm somewhat of a mega fan. I have all of the 41 volumes, even though the volume 41 that I have is in Japanese, which I cannot read. And yeah, I have multiple figurines, multiple statues. As you can see here, I have my little Guts Nendroid. Apart from collecting art books, I also collect Nendroids. And when I saw that they made a Guts Nendroid, I couldn't help myself but to go ahead and buy him. And I think he's absolutely incredible. I don't know how well the camera is gonna pick him up, but yeah. So, a couple of things before we get into the book today. First off, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Berserk or the world of Berserk, there is extremely explicit content in this manga and in this art book as well. So for those of you who are uncomfortable with extreme violence, both normal violence and sexual violence, this may not be the video for you. I did go through the art book before I sat down today, and there isn't that much of the not safe for work stuff in this book. However, there is a few pictures, so I will do my best to censor them in post. But again, if that's something that you are not comfortable with, I would maybe recommend skipping this video. Secondly, this art book is in Japanese. There is no English version of it, and unfortunately I do not speak or read Japanese, so I won't be able to read any of the passages in the book today. However, we will just be going through the artwork, and for the most part, this is I would say, 85% artwork book. There's not that much writing. There's a couple of little bits under some of the images, just kind of saying, like the characters' names and stuff. Couple of passages just about the world of Berserk in general. And yeah, so and also because this is a Japanese book about a manga, it is in the format of a manga. So the front of the book, if you are familiar with manga, is in the manga style, where it opens with what we in the West would consider the back of the book going backwards, but it's just standard issue for manga. So let's get into it. As you can see, the cover has this great image of Guts, our protagonist, in his berserker armor in this black and white or grayscale color scheme, which is really nice. So I forgot to mention at the beginning, this art book is by the legendary mangaka Kentaro Miura, who sadly passed away, but his legacy lives on in this incredible series, which is not a stretch to say is probably the greatest manga ever created, both in terms of story and especially artwork. Any of you who have read Berserk will know exactly what I mean. So let me just straighten the book up here because it is kind of crooked, and let's get started. So we need to kind of slide it over a bit and open it. Let me just make sure that it is in frame, which it now is. I will try my best not to move the book that much. I know in the last two videos with the smaller art books, I kind of moved the books around a little bit, which was unintentional, but since this is a larger, heavier book, it should be easier to keep in one place. So we start off with Kentaro Miura Presents with an image of a depiction of the Skull Knight with some roses and with his skull cracked open, showing some behelets or baylets, or however you would like to pronounce it. There's multiple different pronunciations. And actually, just something as a trivia fact, just while we're on the subject of red, something that some people don't know about Berserk is that Griffith's Baylet is red, since it is the egg of the king, whereas the other Apostles' Baylets are gray. That's something that may not be apparent in the manga at all, because, you know, manga is in black and white, but just something interesting that I actually didn't know until a couple of months ago. And I found out by watching I finally watched the 1997 anime, which is really good. It's not as good as the manga and has a lot of stuff left out, but it's probably the best adaptation of Berserk that we have gotten, and we will not speak about the most recent adaptation because, as far as I'm concerned, that does not exist. The artwork of Berserk with this amazing double spread of Guts in his black swordsman armor with the Berserker armor, swinging his Dragon Slayer sword, which is an iconic weapon and has inspired many, many characters. If you have ever played a game or read a manga about a sad boy protagonist with a massive sword, for example, Cloud from Final Fantasy VII, that is a direct inspiration from Berserk. Berserk has inspired so many works. It's incredible just how far this manga has reached across all forms of media, which I just think is so, so cool. So we start off with this color panel of the Knights of the Purple Unicorn. These are Knights of Midland, who at the start of the series are one of the most powerful and elite groups of soldiers and knights in the Midland Army. We will find out more about them as we continue and as you read the manga. I should have said this at the beginning, but if you have not read Berserk and are interested by anything you see in this book, I would highly recommend that you close off the video, go read Berserk, and then come back, because after you read Berserk, you will appreciate this book much, much more. Again, we have some knights with their heraldry. I really like how the heraldry in Berserk is very colorful. It's very accurate to the time period. A lot of modern depictions of, medieval heraldry and flags and stuff is always very drab in colors, when realistically, everything back then was super, super colorful. So here we have a picture of Guts, Judo, and Casca, and I believe Guts has Princess Charlotte on his back here. This is when they are going to rescue Griffith after he has been imprisoned by the King of Midland. And here we have some of the ruins that the gang sees as they traverse down the tower which is holding Griffith. This tower has a lot of architecture from the kingdom of Geiseric, and it's heavily inspired by the Roman statues and architecture. And what happens is they drop down this torch to the very bottom, and we see all of these skulls with the brand of sacrifice on their foreheads, all of them. And at this point in the story, we don't know why or what happened, or we don't even know what this symbol is. The gang doesn't see it. We, the reader, just see it as the torch is dropped to the bottom of the tower. Here's a colored double spread of the beginning of Berserk. Here we see Gambino leading his mercenary band, and Baby Guts underneath his mother, who was hanged. So a very bleak and disturbing start to the manga, which I wish I could say this is the worst it gets, but this is Berserk, and yeah, it's only gonna continue from here. I should also mention at this point, and I think I said this in the intro, I will do my best to censor anything that might get this video flagged for nudity or sexual content. If anything slips by me, please do let me know in the comments, and I will be sure to go back, re-edit the video, and re-upload it. Again, another picture of Baby Guts with these are the feet of his mother. Here we see the scene where Gambino comes in to Guts' tent and tries to murder him. Guts at this point is still a very, very young child who has been trained by Gambino and his mercenary company to be essentially a child soldier. And Guts was, even though Gambino was just a mercenary, Guts essentially served as his squire or page or whatever the proper term is. And as you can see, Gambino's attempt at killing young Guts fails when Guts, in self-defense, accidentally puts his sword through Gambino's throat, which is a very pivotal moment for Guts' character and has a major psychological impact on him. Here we see a time skip to when Guts is a young teenager. I believe he's about 14 or 15 in this. This is the first time we see this age Guts fight, and he is the only one in this army who challenges Bezuso, who was a legendary fighter. I believe he was known for killing, I think it was 10 men? I may be wrong about that, but Guts makes quick work of him despite his heavy plated armor and massive circular great helm. This picture actually doesn't do justice to how big Bezuso was. He was absolutely massive, and his armor only made him that much bigger. Here's Guts after the fight, kind of lifting his visor up. You can see there's a little bit of blood coming down from his head because Bezuso did manage to get a glancing blow on Guts' helmet, but nothing too serious. Bit of blood on his sword. Guts famously trained with a standard length longsword when he was essentially about 5 or 6. So he's used to wielding weapons that are much larger and much heavier than he is. And we will only see that continue to grow as the series and this book continues. Again, another picture showing Guts standing over the fallen Bezuso. This picture does do a lot better showing the size of Bezuso, both compared to Guts and compared to all of these standard soldiers here in their armor versus Bezuso in his massive plate armor. Here we see Guts after his fight with Casca, after Corcus tries to rob him with 2 of his friends. His 2 friends do not fare very well at all, and Casca comes to intervene, and Guts almost kills her, except for the intervention of Griffith. This is our first real image of Griffith in this book, and this is where Guts first meets the Band of the Hawk. Here's a great double spread. This is actually probably one of my favorites in the entire book. This is after Guts' first battle, after he is indoctrinated into the Band of the Hawk. Guts is very antisocial due to many reasons, which I won't get into because it will get this video instantly flagged. But he tends to just stay alone and brood, and this is him just kind of sitting on the castle battlements by himself while the rest of the Band of the Hawk is in the courtyard having a celebration. After this scene, shortly after, Pippin, who is another member of the Band of the Hawk and is a absolute unit of a lad, comes up and picks Guts up bodily, carries him down the stairs, and essentially forces him to join in the festivities, which I just think is such a funny scene. And it's Guts' real first time not quite feeling comfortable, but enjoying himself around the company of others, which he has not had that experience in his life so far. Here again is another shot of Guts on the battlements. Him looking down, you can see the Band of the Hawk camp below. Again, looking very sad. And this is him after Pippin drags him down. You know, all of the Band of the Hawk. At this point, Guts was given command of 10 men, and these are some of those men. I'm not sure. I believe this man here is a man named Gaston. However, I could be incorrect. If there's a better picture of Gaston later on, I will correct myself. Another picture of Guts on the battlements looking sad. This is a scene of Griffith and Guts after they have a completely normal friendship bonding moment of splashing water on each other, which is probably, actually no, this is the first time, this scene afterwards is the first time we see Guts laugh and have a real smile on his face. He's had a couple of, I don't know what the proper term is, you know, sardonic smiles or just plastered on smiles during the Black Swordsman arc. All this stuff that we've covered so far takes place during the second arc of the book, or the manga, sorry, called the Golden Age arc. And this is almost like the prologue or backstory of Guts, so we really get to learn about him in this arc. Griffith is stark naked, except for his bailet. Yeah, this is just a really funny scene, and I didn't mention this, but you'll see across all the pictures of Guts, you see it here, you kind of see it here, and you see it better here. Guts has this scar on his nose, and how he got this scar was when he was training with Gambino. He got a good shot in on Gambino when they were essentially play training, and after Guts got that attack in, which didn't actually, you know, hurt Gambino or anything, Gambino got really angry and took a proper swing at Child Guts and almost cut his nose off in his attempt. So that's what that scar is. We're gonna see this scar constantly on the face of our protagonist Guts. Here's a picture of Guts riding his horse. He still has his armor from when he fought Bezuso. With his, I really like his holster or sheath for his sword. It's not a full sheath, it's just this little piece here with a string at the end just to hold his sword in. Also, I should probably just say, before we go any further, if you're wondering why his name is Guts, of all things, or Gatsu, or multiple different translations, but Guts or Gatsu are the main two names that he goes by depending on the language you read the story in, is because, as you saw in the first couple of pages, they found baby Guts in a pile of guts from the hanged corpses. So I believe it wasn't Gambino, it was his wife Sisu, it was either Sisu or Gambino, I actually can't remember, but they named him Guts based on how they found him, which is a pretty terrible thing to do to a child, but he owns the name and wears it proudly. He's never ashamed of his name or anything like that, which is good. Here is a double spread of the first apostle that we meet in the Golden Age arc. This is Nosferatu Zod, who, aka Immortal Zod. He is a legendary mercenary who, every time people think he dies or has disappeared, years or decades later, seemingly pops up again on another battlefield. And like all apostles, Zod has two forms. He has his human, quote-unquote human form, which is still pretty demonic looking, and then he has his full transformation look, which is almost like a mix between a cat with these massive horns and a pair of massive wings, which he uses to fly around. So, very imposing figure and an extremely tough foe. Moving on. This is Guts' first fight with Zod. This is his first time, chronologically anyway, encountering an apostle, and as anyone would be, Guts is absolutely terrified of this creature. But despite that, his bravery wins out and he fights Nosferatu Zod. And before Zod transforms, Guts actually manages to land a hit on him, which Zod is instantly impressed because, as his name Nosferatu or Immortal, Zod would imply he's been around for a very, very long time. And Guts is the first person in eons to actually damage or hurt Zod, so Zod is instantly impressed by Guts' prowess as a swordsman, which will only continue and expand as the story continues. 1, 2, 3. Okay, sorry about the cut there, guys. I just went and took a drink of water because my mouth was getting kind of dry and I didn't want that to affect the video that much. So let's continue. Here we see Griffith leading the Band of the Hawk as a couple of peasants look on. We see the Band of the Hawk banner, which will become a very important symbol as the story continues. Griffith in his armor here, with his slender sword compared to Guts' massive greatsword. You probably saw it earlier in that picture of Griffith when Guts was fighting Casca, but his armor, especially his helmet, resembles a bird of prey, fitting in with the motif of the Band of the Hawk. I know some people call it the Band of the Falcon. I think that's just a mistranslation based on some of the translations you find online aren't 100% accurate, but the official name is the Band of the Hawk. Here is Guts holding Casca after they fall off a cliff during a battle. Casca is suffering from her time of the month and is faltering in battle, and after a very strenuous fight, she falls off a cliff. She faints after the stress of the battle, and Guts reaches for her and manages to grab her, but they both fall and land in a river, and by the time they climb out of the river, night has fallen, and they are being hunted by the enemy, which is the kingdom of Tudor. So they hide in this, I don't know what the proper term is. It's not a cave, it's more like it's under a massive tree roots, and to keep warm, since both of their clothes and armor are soaked through with freezing water, Guts has to keep Casca and himself warm by their body heat. Casca here is still unconscious, and Guts is holding her with his sword, and you can see on his face he is very uncomfortable at this, again for reasons which I don't want to get into, but if you read the manga or have read the manga, you probably know why Guts doesn't like people touching him in any way. And here is another shot of Guts, still in his Band of the Hawk era, with his cape and his armor and his greatsword. This is his original greatsword in the Band of the Hawk. This is also probably, I believe this battle takes place 2 years after Guts joined the Band of the Hawk, so I think he's about 17 or 18 during this point. I could be wrong, he might be a little bit younger or a little bit older. If anyone knows for sure, please correct me in the comments below. Here is a great colored image of Griffith. Griffith is this beautiful looking man, almost androgynous. He has this long, wavy silver hair. He has the Band of the Hawk insignia on his armor, and he's holding his sword, which is almost like a curved saber. It's a very slender sword, but he is an incredibly skilled warrior. Thus why he's able to lead the Band of the Hawk, being a very slender looking man, not someone who looks like they would be the leader of one of the most feared mercenary groups in Midland. Midland is the name of the kingdom that this arc takes place in, and the kingdom that the Band of the Hawk is fighting for, or ends up fighting for. And here is Guts on his horse leading some of his men. Again, we see the Band of the Hawk banner. This time it is in red. Guts drawing his sword. I really like how during this time and throughout the story, Guts has bandages on his hand and on his sword, just to improve with his grip. We also see that he has his dagger here just as a backup, which is very smart, and just to emphasize the length of this sword, this is the pommel of the sword here, and if we go all the way down to here, this is still Guts' sword. This isn't even the end of it, this is just part of it. So this really is a massive, massive weapon that Guts wields. see, I believe this, yeah, this is Guts due to his sword on his horse again, and Griffith leading a charge on his horse. Griffith's horse is white, just like his armor and just like his hair. And here we see a big picture of the, I believe they are called the Rhino Knights. This is one of their commanders, whose name I currently cannot recall. I apologize. And we have some more soldiers in the background here. They are one of the elite units of the Tudor army, which is the army that Midland is at war with and has been at war with for the last 100 years. Sorry, I didn't realize my hairbrush was in there. That is embarrassing. Let's continue. I'm not gonna edit that out, just for authenticity. This is an incredible spread of a battle. So we see knights on both sides. I believe these are the Band of the Hawk Knights here, charging into battle. It's a very busy image, so I don't believe there's any of our main characters in here that I can see, but yeah, this is just them charging in. You know, they have their swords, like here. They have their crossbows. This man has one on the side of his horse. This man has one on the back of his horse, and this man again has one on the side of his horse. So the Band of the Hawk are very well provisioned for a mercenary group. Again, the reason they are provisioned so well for a seemingly up-jumped mercenary company is because Griffith cuts a deal with a local lord in exchange for gold and funding. Griffith allows the lord to sleep with him for a night, which is Griffith does it to support his army, but it's very apparent that Griffith does not want to do this, but he does it for the sake of his men and for the Band of the Hawk as a whole. Here we see the Band of the Hawk's captains, as they, after they have won a couple of battles, they are attending a royal, I believe it's a ball, and as opposed to their normal armor, they are in their finery clothes to fit in at the Midland court. So here we have Griffith, here we have Rickard, here we have Corcus. This is the man who tried to rob Guts a couple of pages back. Here's Guts himself. Here is Judo. Judo is probably my favorite member of the Band of the Hawk. I just really like his character and his fighting style. And here, this man is Pippin. This is the man I was talking about who lifted Guts bodily down to the festivities, as you can see by his face. And I think you might be able to see some of his body. He is absolutely huge. And fun fact about both Berserk and me, if you've read Berserk, I had Pippin's hairstyle for about 4 years before I decided to let my hair grow out. So when I first read Berserk, seeing Pippin have the same haircut as me was just a very laugh out loud moment. But yeah, this is a really important part in the story. This is when the Band of the Hawk is starting to get recognized for their skill on the battlefield, and the commanders are now starting to gain political status in Midland, thus why they have been invited to attend this ball. And this is all according to Griffith's plan, which we may go into later, depending on some of the pages. I am trying to do my best not to spoil most of the plot of Berserk for those of you who may have not read it, but Griffith is a very ambitious man. He was born a commoner, but he has very high ambitions, and we will see how that turns out later in the story and in the book. This is a double spread of the moment after the final battle that ended the Midland Tudor War, which lasted for 100 years. Guts is tired of following Griffith's dream. Griffith's dream is part of his ambition, which I mentioned last page, and Guts has decided to leave the Band of the Hawk because instead of pursuing Griffith's dream, Guts wants to go and make his own life, make his own dream, make his own, kind of find his own purpose rather than just being a follower. But when Guts joined the Band of the Hawk, he joined based on a duel between him and Griffith. And part of the deal was that if Griffith won the duel, he would own Guts and essentially force him into the Band of the Hawk, which ended up happening. And when Guts decides to leave, Griffith is not pleased and reminds Guts that, quote, "you belong to me." So they end up having this duel, and Guts wins this duel, partly because at this point, all Guts has been doing has been fighting and war and training at his swordsmanship, nothing else. Whereas Griffith, despite at the start of the Golden Age arc being the better swordsman, he has mainly been a political player outside of the battles. So Guts ends up overpowering Griffith in a single swing. He damages Griffith's wrist, nothing severe, and ends up shattering his sword in half, which leaves Griffith stunned on his knees on the snow as Guts walks off to pursue his own journey. Here is Griffith and Princess Charlotte. After Guts leaves, Griffith kind of not goes crazy, but loses his self-control, and instead of his plan to slowly but surely win over the Kingdom of Midland and eventually try and marry Princess Charlotte, he essentially breaks into her room at night, and the two of them have sex, which is forbidden for multiple reasons, both because the princess is unmarried and also because Griffith, despite his new status, I believe at this point he is a count, but as far as most of the Midland court are concerned, he is still just a commoner. So for a commoner to have sex with the princess under any circumstances, let alone breaking into her private chambers, is a very big problem, which Griffith ends up finding out the hard way the consequences of his actions. This panel, I'm going to have to blur a lot of it. This is Princess Charlotte, and this is her father, the King of Midland. I would like to reiterate, this is her father, and part of the reason why Griffith ends up in the situation he does after this, apart from the reasons I just mentioned about, being a commoner and the princess being unmarried, the king, her father, wanted his daughter, Princess Charlotte, for himself. And as far as he is concerned, Griffith spoiled her. So that's why some of the things that happens to Griffith happens. Very disturbing imagery, very disturbing detail in the plot. The King of Midland up to this point had seemed like a very noble, regal man. And then after he finds out about Griffith's transgression, he kind of goes a little bit mad and attacks Princess Charlotte in her bed. Very disturbing. Couple of pages and chapters about this. So like I said, I will have to blur out some of the details, or not some, most of the details in this page. Just comes with the territory of Berserk as a whole. Here we have our first real image of the Skull Knight, one of the most important characters in all of Berserk. I really like the Skull Knight. I think he is very, very cool. Some people find him to be a Deus Ex Machina, which later on in the story is kind of the case. However, I don't think that takes away from his character and from his deeds in the story. He appears to Guts and gives him a very cryptic warning, which at the time Guts doesn't know what that means. So he just kind of ignores the Skull Knight and tells him to, or how should I say this politely, he essentially tells Skull Knight to get lost in a much more ruder terminology. And here we have Guts and some of the Bakuraka assassins. The Bakuraka are an elite group of Kushan assassins. The Kushans are another faction and kingdom in the world of Berserk. So far we've only heard of Midland and Tudor, but the Kushans are a massive empire and an extremely powerful force. And after Griffith's Griffith's interaction with the princess in her chambers, once Guts and Casca and some of the Band of the Hawk come to rescue Griffith, the king sends the Bakuraka after them, and that's very forbidden, almost a taboo. But like I said, after the king found out what Griffith did, he ends up going a little bit, or not a little bit, he ends up going quite mad. So we'll see more of the Bakaraka. I won't go into more detail. But he's a double he ends up having a bit of a PTSD episode as they are about to, I believe this is as they're about to make love for the first time. Casca at the beginning of the series, because he's so traumatized by something that happened to him when he was younger, and he doesn't end up going through with it, and afterwards he ends up explaining to Casca what happened to him and everything, which is the first time he's ever told anyone, and Casca is there for him and embraces him, and it's a very nice scene. It's the first time really anyone other than Griffith has shown Guts true affection and love, which is great for Guts. If you know, anytime this man gets to feel any kind of happiness in this story, just brings a massive smile to my face. Here we see Griffith. This is after he was imprisoned by the King of Midland and was sentenced to torture by the Midland jailer torturer. His torture is, I don't even know how to describe it. Extreme, doesn't even scratch the surface. The King of Midland personally told the torturer to essentially do anything and everything to Griffith except let him die. So Griffith goes through hell. As you can see, his back is flayed open. You can see some of the tendons and the muscles. As almost an insult, the king made a recreation of Griffith's helmet and locked it to his neck. So, just as an insult, and to kind of make Griffith suffer in a way of like remembering who he was, what he had, and everything. And despite having this helmet on, that does not save Griffith from the torturer inflicting damage to his face. Again, is terrible. We never actually see the damage done to Griffith's face. However, we see Guts' reaction to seeing it, and based on Guts' reaction, we can assume that it's beyond horrific. Here is our first introduction to our really first major antagonist group. These are the Black Dog Knights, led by Wylad. Is it Wylad or Wild? I can't remember. I believe it's Wild, but sometimes I see people call him Wylad, but yeah, his name is Wild. He is our second apostle that we meet in the Golden Age arc, as you can kind of make out by his face. He looks not quite human compared to some of the other men in this group. and he was essentially held in the dungeons of Midland for being so savage in his methods of attack. But after Guts and the gang rescue Griffith, the king is so angry that he sets the Black Dog Knights loose to go recapture Griffith. Now, you can see that what the Black Dog Knights are carrying, and I'm gonna have to blur this significantly, but they are essentially, depending on how much I have to blur, you may not be able to make out exactly what they are. They are impaled pieces of women's bodies. Wilde himself is carrying this woman, essentially her entire body except for her limbs. This guy has, I believe this is a child impaled on his spear. This man is holding a woman's lower body. And same goes for these guys. This guy has 2 legs impaled. This guy has a similar thing to what Wilde is holding, except minus a head. And if you're wondering why they've done this to these women, when the Band of the Hawk was rescuing Griffith and in their escape, they found refuge in, I believe it was either a house or a tavern that these women lived in, and they provided aid to the Band of the Hawk. And because of this, Wilde, does this to them just to show his barbarity. And this is them after they've been killed. I'm not going to get into what Wilde and his men do to them while they are still alive, as it's bad. But that's just Berserk. I should also mention Wilde's men, while they are as savage as him and as brutal as him, not to the same extent, but almost, they do what they do both because they enjoy it, but also because they are absolutely terrified of Wilde. Anytime anyone doesn't engage in this sort of activity in the Black Dog Knights, Wilde just kills them on the spot. So they feel as if partially they have to do this to survive, which does not justify their actions in any way, but it just adds this dynamic of this savage group of soldiers being so terrified of this one quote-unquote man at this point. Here's another picture. We see a member of the Band of the Hawk with a crossbow. We see Casca. We see Guts, who is partially wounded. A couple more Band of the Hawk members. This is Wilde holding Griffith, who is naked apart from his helmet. This is Wilde's full demonic form after he transforms. As you can see, he's been wounded by Guts. There's a crossbow in one of his eyes. He's missing an eye here. He's bleeding heavily. Guts did give him a pretty good fight, but he's going up against an apostle, aka a extremely powerful demon, so he was extremely outclassed. And Nosferatu's Zod shows up, just as things are looking very dire for Griffith, Guts, Casca, and the Band of the Hawk, and kills Wild. He picks him up and impales him on his horns for reasons we will probably get into in a few pages. If not, I will explain why he does this. Because you may be wondering, if these two are both apostles, why would one apostle kill another apostle when he's about to kill Griffith? And we'll discuss this a little bit more later on. Here, this is a double spread. This is after, as we go back, Wild shows the entire Band of the Hawk the state of Griffith. At this point, they believe Griffith is still able to lead the army, command. Griffith's the same old guy, and Wild essentially shows them that no, Griffith can't even hold a sword, he can't walk. The torturer slashed all of his tendons, so he can't do anything. He's essentially just a body at this point. He can't move on his own, he can't do anything, which has a severe mental impact on Griffith. So back to this page, this is after the Band of the Hawk sees the state Griffith's in and realizes that their beloved commander can no longer lead them, and they are extremely crestfallen. We see Casca here. She has been taken command since Griffith was captured. We see Corcus here. Corcus was in denial about Griffith's condition up until the very end, and now he doesn't know what to do. And Guts is just sitting here, kind of looking on at the whole ordeal. Here's a great image, and again, another one of my favorites, of all the members of, or all of the captains of the Band of the Hawk, in full color and great detail. So we have Guts, we have Casca, we have Judo, we have Griffith, we have Pippin, and we have Rickert. Rickert at this stage is just a child. He's essentially Griffith's squire. He's treated very well in the Band of the Hawk. When Guts was a child in Gambino's mercenary group, he was severely abused in many different kinds of ways, but Rickert is beloved by the entire group. So yeah, Rickert's a good boy. He's a great little lad. Here is a little flashback to younger Guts after his fight with Bezuso, and shortly after he joins the Band of the Hawk for the first time with his original helmet and armor. And here is another picture of Griffith. You can see again the flowing hair, a very beautiful man, like I said, very androgynous looking, with his bird of prey helmet. I believe it's meant to be a hawk-looking helmet, but it really looks like, you know, any kind of bird of prey. So, I mean, it goes with the whole motif, and Pippin here is holding, again, the Band of the Hawk banner. Here's some more multiple images. We have Casca in her armor riding into battle. She has, I believe that's a spear in her hand as she's charging. Casca again. She looks a lot younger in this, so I believe this is back when Guts first joined the Band of the Hawk. In her armor with her sword, she has a very slender sword with her horse. We have Judo here, and here as well, but this time in his armor and with his sword. You can also see he has a bandolier across his chest with some throwing knives. Judo is an expert at throwing knives, and that's one of the reasons that makes him such a great fighter. Despite his small stature, he's extremely accurate with these knives. And so here we have Casca in her armor on her horse with a spear. I believe that just, it looks like a spear, not a sword, as she's riding into battle. Here is again Casca looking a lot much younger, so I believe this is shortly after Guts joins the Band of the Hawk. With her horse, she's not riding into battle, but she's prepared for battle, and again she has a very slender sword. Here is Judo. This is just a nice portrait shot. This is him in partial armor, and this is him in his full armor with his sword. As you can see, he has a bandolier across his chest with throwing knives. Judo is an expert at throwing these knives and is extremely accurate, which makes him a very dangerous foe on the battlefield, despite his small stature. It's part of what makes him such a good fighter and what makes him one of the captains or commanders of the Band of the Hawk. Here is Corcus in his armor minus his helmet, which is on his lap. Another more detailed picture of Corcus. Corcus is kind of a little bit of a jackass, but he does make some good points throughout the story, especially towards the end of the arc. This is Corcus again in his full armor with some other men under his command. Here we have one of the knights. Oh no, I believe, sorry, this is Pippin, my bad, in his horse, in his full armor. Again, another shot of Pippin here. You can see his haircut, which I mentioned earlier. This is the last time I'll mention his haircut, I promise. But it's the long hair on top in a ponytail with the sides shaven. It's a very modern haircut these days. A lot of people have it, myself included, a few years back. And Pippin again. Pippin is extremely muscular. That's why he's easily the largest of the Band of the Hawk, even towering over Guts. And Guts himself is an absolute unit. So let's continue. Here's some more portraits and pictures of members of the Band of the Hawk. Here is young Rickert in partial armor. This is him in his full armor with his crossbow. Rickard tends to be more of a ranged fighter, just due to the fact that, you know, he is a young child. I believe he's about 8 or 9, maybe 7, during this arc. So he's not really equipped physically to, you know, go toe-to-toe with full-grown men in plate and mail, so he tends to use his crossbow and stuff, and he is very effective at it. Here we see him out of his armor, in a campsite. He's currently cooking up some stew, probably for Guts and the gang, since Rickard absolutely idolizes Guts at this stage in the story. Here is Griffith and Guts. Griffith is handing out, I believe it's some coins, to some people that he passes on the street. Griffith tends to be very generous to the common folk. It's not always authentic. Sometimes, or most of the time, it's mainly just for show, but he still does it, so, you know, it's better than nothing, and it's better how a lot of people in his position treat common folk. Again, remember, at this stage in the story, Griffith has been made a count, so he is currently Count Griffith. Here is Guts, and I'm not sure who that is. They are carrying someone who was wounded. Judo is here as well, with some more men in the background. Casca here, taking a bath with her armor discarded back here. We see Pippin, Rickard, and Corcus up here. It looks like Rickard has pushed Corcus into the river, despite Corcus wearing, you know, full plate and mail. And if you know anything about medieval times, men in plate and mail and water are not a good combo. So Rickard is being a little cheeky-breeky lad here, and Pippin is just having a good laugh. I don't know if you can make it out, but he has a grin on his face there, which I just think is very funny. For all of the horrific violence in Berserk, the manga is very, very funny, especially in the first couple of arcs and volumes. Here we see some more preparations for battle. We see Guts here, we see Pippin. I believe this is Gaston again, loading some kind of battering ram or other siege equipment onto some horses. Again, some more Band of the Hawk members. This looks like Rickard. Oh no, sorry, Judo here. I could be wrong, this could just be a soldier. This man has been shot multiple times with crossbows. Same with this man here and this man here. So yeah, I would say this is definitely either Rickard or Judo. Here is a kind of rude image of Casca with her sword in, let's just say, partial armor from the waist up, at least. This picture here is one of my favorites. I believe this is a panel in the manga, but it's cool to see it in color what's happening here is the Band of the Hawk has gained extreme fame in Midland for being essentially the faction or the mercenary group who single-handedly ended the 100 Years' War with Tudor. So these children are playing at being Band of the Hawk members. This child here is obviously mimicking Griffith with his kind of similar looking helmet. I can only imagine that he probably stole this. But I just think it's a very cute scene. And you see Griffith and Guts looking on as they walk past, seeing the children essentially playing at being them. This child even has a little banner of the Band of the Hawk, which I think is adorable. Here is Casca holding her helmet, either sheathing or unsheathing her sword after a battle. This man is looking on very happy. Loads of dead bodies around. This man is also having his sword thrust in the air. Same with this man. So I'm assuming this battle has been won, as is custom for any battle the Band of the Hawk takes place in. There's also a cannon on the ground here, so whatever the enemy fortifications were, it's safe to say that it has been totally upended. Here is Judo resting in a tree. He tends to do this often. Just very relaxed and very chill. We see some of the Band of the Hawk camp beneath him, some tents with some figures, no one in particular, very low detail drawings. It's just meant to be kind of silhouettes showing that the soldier's walking about as Judo is just chilling in this tree. Here is Caucus in a tavern. Caucus is a ladies' man and is very fond of using his newfound status as a noble due to the Band of the Hawk's exploits to impress women. So it looks like he's quite successful here. Here is Rickert loading his crossbow. We see Pippin here, and this looks like just a child, but this is a great picture of just the size of Pippin. I know it's compared to a child, but yeah, it just again goes to show Pippin's size. Here is Guts leading some of his men into battle. This is a great picture here of the Band of the Hawk just relaxing after a battle. So we see Pippin here, we see Casca, we see Griffith, and his sword is beside him. We see Judo playing what looks like a lute. I forgot to mention Judo is a very skilled musician. Caucus here having a nice swig of some kind of alcoholic beverage. Rickert is here, and Guts being Guts is just up in the tree, sticking to himself as per his custom. And here is a double spread of the beginning of the end. Griffith, after realizing and really coming to terms with his physical situation and his disabilities, which he'll never recover from, tries to flee in a carriage by driving it with his teeth and ends up crashing and going flying into the shallow end of this lake. You can see a sharpened stick here, which Griffith tries to end his own life with, but fails, cementing even more in his head just how useless and pathetic he views himself, that he can't even successfully end his own life. That's how damaged physically he is, and it has a huge toll on his mental well-being. Here is the start of probably the most famous moment of Berserk, the eclipse. We see Griffith here looking on as the eclipse is starting to form. We see Griffith's Bailet here, which normally has the features of a human face in a disarrayed order, but due to the stress and situation of Griffith, both in his physical and mental well-being, it has transformed into a full face and has now been activated, which we will soon see what happens when Griffith's Bailet, or any Bailet, activates. Guts is looking on, shocked and in disbelief at what he sees. He sees Griffith in the water. It's kind of hard to make out, but you can see the wound on his neck where Griffith tried to end his own life. And there's all of these figures in the background in multiple different shapes, and they all appear to be naked. So I wonder why all of these figures have appeared behind Griffith as the eclipse is forming. Maybe we will see in a couple more pages. Here's again another double spread of Guts trying to console Griffith, but Griffith does not want Guts anywhere near him. That's partially why his Bailet activated, and when it did with the eclipse, it transformed the landscape into this red hellscape where the ground and sky and everything transforms into this massive, I don't even know what to call this properly, this massive mass of faces. You can't tell from the black and white artwork, both of this book and the manga, but all of these faces are red or crimson, and they cover all of the land and the entire band of the Hawk, Griffith included, Guts included, Casca included. Everyone is terrified of what is happening, because at this point none of them understand what's going on. And here is a picture of one of the last happy times we'll see between Griffith and Guts as they are laughing after a battle. We see some men dead. It's not clear whether these are Band of the Hawk members or Knights of Tudor, but they're dead, their siege equipment is in ruins, and Guts and Griffith, being inseparable friends at this point, are having a good laugh with some kanji here, which unfortunately I cannot read. If anyone can read Japanese and would like to point out in the comments what this says, I would really, really appreciate it. And that is going to end part 1 of this video. We will continue and finish the rest of the book in part 2. I'm hoping to make this a 2-part series, not a 3-part series, but we'll see how it goes. I don't want to make the videos too long. So, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your viewership, as always. And yeah, if you are listening to this video as you are going to sleep, this is the end of the video, so I would turn it off now before an ad plays at the end that might wake you up. Again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the first part of this book. I really enjoyed going through this. This is about my 3rd time going through this art book, and every time I enjoy it anew, just because I love Berserk so much. So thanks again for watching, and I will see you guys in part 2. Have a great evening or great morning. Goodbye.